Did you know this is required reading? Well, I do because never leave home without it, even if you live 10,000 miles away. We got a few minutes for people to come jump in and a reboot in action from 2 hours ago, but that's okay because sometimes that's how things work, right? And the work is never, never, ever done. If you think it is, hang out a little bit. It'll come right back and haunt you again. There's a lot going on right now. And the biggest one we're going to deal with today is how this guy can't stop threatening people. And we've got really every day is an evolving craziness. I wrote this article 2 days ago. The Ministry of Truth was always the plan. How Trump built an information compliance state while screaming about censorship, and then hang out for 24 hours. He's going to post again to Truth Social, and it gets crazier each time. I don't know about you, but I used to hear about that they had special rooms, padded rooms, and medical doctors that dealt with senile syphilitic felons. But what do I know? I know nothing about medical. My job is different. My job is terrorism for many years as a civilian, disinformation, hacking, hack and dumps, now war for 4 years active. And so it's as if it's just meant to show me that you're never going to be done, right? The war and the war that he's currently launching against Iran. I said this back when he offed Qasem Soleimani. He had no plan. It was an impulse item. That's all it will ever be for Donald J. Trump is an impulse item. And I think that that's really kind of a big problem when you think about putting America's powerful arsenal, on full display to kill. Is that we have 13 American service members dead in 2 weeks, and I have some veteran friends I've been reaching out to join us at some point when they have time, and everyone is crazy busy right now, so they will be here. Still kind of in limbo about what my plan for the week is, because we're supposed to go out to the east and go out to the front. Exactly, John Tomlinson, 13, 6 more killed in the refueling plane, including an airman that was very, uh, very, very sweet young man, according to his family in Ohio, that was interviewed on local, or the family was interviewed on local television. They're very, very livid that this has taken place. Clearly, I'm sure that family, like a lot of military families, I grew up in a Navy family. My uncle was a master chief, and I grew up with my grandmother, which means Navy boys were always around the house, being told like, "Don't play Chris at any games because he's going to take your money." We fed them all the time. Every holiday, there was a group of sailors that would always come home with us, and so we get it. But the idea of being so flippant to throw lives away is exactly what the purpose of putting Congress in charge of who declares war was all about. You didn't want to have a lunatic king who could just decide to go throw everyone into war without any checks and balances, any consultation of the people who would fight the war. And I think it's been said pretty well by smart folks over the last few weeks. At least George Bush threw some bullshit into Congress with Colin Powell to try to convince people of a reason to go to war in Iraq, at the very least. So, see, Craig Unger's here. We'll actually have Craig on here soon, too. If you haven't been following Craig's account, make sure you are. But as Craig will tell you from his work, Reagan and these guys, when it comes to foreign policy, they're very careless and very reckless. And in particular, like I said, with George Bush and Dick Cheney, they at least gave you a fucking presentation. I don't remember, and maybe I forget. I'm 56, so I have a pretty good memory for my life. I don't remember them threatening the press. I don't remember, Scotty getting up there as the press secretary. Brian will be here in a minute. Maybe he can recall this. I don't remember him getting up and basically saying, George has said that you're a traitor. or Richard Bruce Cheney saying that you're a traitor for reporting news that was inconvenient to their narrative about Iraq. But maybe I'm just getting old and can't remember those days. The propaganda model is so in Trump's favor that the reason why I wrote the article 2 days ago, the Ministry of Truth was always the plan, how Trump built an information compliance state while screaming about censorship, has a lot to do with how corporate media, and not just news, has now kowtowed and catered to Donald Trump's worst instincts and those of his um, basically criminal felon level posse. You watch how they attack at every level. You watch this garbage that comes out on their social media account. Most reasonable people I know just are revolted at um, the White House official pages, the Department of Homeland Security's official pages. It looks like they basically hired a bunch of, groyper lackeys that couldn't even go into college to just troll at the worst possible level, video game level war violence. And I'm very clear what should happen to them. They should be forced to pick up the damages with their fucking teeth. Um, put a helmet on them, send them to the front. I live in a country in full blown war. It doesn't take much to get certain people here to want to send someone who gets a little out of, kind of gets a shitty attitude and isn't serving to say, oh, well, we have an answer for that. You know, the war here is a full blown, tangible war in Ukraine. And we are currently on day 1035 for me out of 1481, 1435 for my time here in the full scale war, 81 days of full scale war, and 4407 since 2014 when Russia began its invasion. Just today, we had drones in the morning. Instead of trying to wait until overnight, they were launched in the morning. And even had one, the shelling, the debris of one fell in Maidan Square, Maidan Zelensky, right in front of the Independence Monument, no less. And Iran, like I said yesterday in a brief, kind of a bitch fest about it, says that Ukraine should now be a legitimate target for war because of sending interceptor drones to either Israel or the United States. Specifically, they said Israel, but either way. So I put up my own article to that saying, okay, well, so long as we're going to play that game, Iran has been a legitimate target under laws of war for the entire time, for not only participating in the technical development of the Shahed drones used. They're actually, yes, not only made in Russia, but I'm under the appearance now that those are being exported back to Iran. That's a whole nother show for a topic on that. But they were on the ground in Crimea. And I think that when we look at the biggest problem I have with what's going on with Donald Trump is that he has a zero plan for what's going on. Everything is an impulse. Every part of the operation is failing. And he can't even get the allies to kick in at this point. They want nothing to do with this. Gas prices are at $105. The oil barrel is over 105 now. And it's going to get worse because he has no plan. So what does he do instead of having a plan? Threaten the press to tell you what's happening. Literally try to weaponize the entire information space so that you comply. Well, I have bad news for Donald Trump. Every good journalist I know has got an attitude problem in the best possible way, and they're not really going to do that. Brendan Carr tries to use one more tool in the belt, which is to try to deny the licenses of the public airwave stations, ABC, CBS. CBS has already dropped to their knees. NBC. They've been trying to get PBS forever. So, what you have left as the public airwaves has been, basically bought and sold. and the rest is being destroyed. And a pro at this, and one of my favorite human beings, and I already said you got to go to war with this in hand because that's what we're in right now. Um, is our good buddy and my friend Brian, who I was asking a question earlier. Do you remember anyone before Trump basically calling the press traitors to the point which I should remind everyone in the Constitution, the sentence for that is death. I don't remember that.
Me? I don't remember it either. I've been in that press room since 1985.
That's
Uh,
right.
no one has ever called us traitors before. They've called us many things. Some of them you can repeat. Some of them, my own family's called me on occasion. But hey, but not traitor, because we're not. We're in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We're the people. It's that
That's
simple.
right.
So when we're in that, and in fact, previous press secretaries worked with us very well on this. Mike McCurry being the best that I ever worked with during the Clinton administration, who said, "Look, Brian, we not only like the interaction in the press room, but we learn from it. It's from you guys in the press room that, giving us the questions that we learn about issues and adapt our policies." But Donald Trump doesn't want to hear about reality. He only wants to hear about the fiction in his head. So anything we have to say that doesn't agree with him is, in his mind, traitorous. And so I don't want to be in his mind. I like reality just fine. And in reality, he's the problem, not us.
And for those who don't know, and I'm sure many of the people joining us now follow your account already, he's gone directly after you more than
Yes.
once.
Yes. Joy, rapture. Yeah, on more than one occasion. I had to beat him in court 3 times to keep my press pass. Now I'm just fighting to get back in it because I took a while off to create a documentary, and so I wasn't in the briefing room. So they've taken that absence to mean that I'm no longer covering the White House, and they denied me my my press pass
Right.
along very systemic and reasons. So I have to reapply, and that takes a long time.
Where are we at with that, if you don't mind?
We're at the struggle. Just
Struggle,
just trying to get back in, and it's difficult for me because I've been gone, and when I say I want to come back and cover it every day, they look at me and go, "Well, no, we don't believe you." So it's tough.
And one of the things that I wrote in my piece today, which I think is also unprecedented in this era, is that he's weaponized the goon squads on the street. And I specifically quoted how one of the Proud Boys had murdered the media when he was at Jan 6. Ox is his last name. Um, that they attacked the media multiple times. And I pointed out that you had everyone from Cesar Sayak, who I covered, mail bombs to CNN, who have been weaponized. Have you had that type of crowd threaten you?
Of course, I
Yeah.
many times I had the rear end of my car, the rear window of my car bashed out. I had somebody was arrested that was coming to kill me and another reporter. I had police in my home on January 6th. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of people climbing up the walls, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was standing
I
there.
was working that day. That's what I was doing.
I was there 15
Yeah.
feet away and said, "Hey, morons, there's steps on either side. Somebody's going to fall and bust their ass." Someone fell and busted their ass, so they rushed at me, threatening me because I had given them a warning that they were going to fall and bust their ass. So when they got to me, I held out my Playboy press pass. I said, "Wait a minute, I'm not like the rest of the media. I work for Playboy." And these 3 big fat white guys just stopped and looked at me and goes, and one of them with his hands out, and he looks in, he goes, he kind of sniffs my, my press pass, and he goes, "Playboy, can you get me in the mansion?" And I said, "Sure, anytime." "Nothing to see here, guys." And then they turned around and left. He didn't even leave me his card. I don't know
That's
what
an
he was.
interesting angle. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, I know you worked. That was your press
Playboy
pass,
has
but I
saved
hadn't
my
thought
life
about
on
that
more than
actually
one
as a
occasion.
response.
That's the best press pass I've ever had, was a Playboy press pass.
Right. Wow. One of the concerns I brought up was how these major media outlets have basically catered to Donald Trump's whims. That's also I wouldn't say it's entirely unprecedented, but it's unprecedented at this level, at least. Yeah.
Well, it's manipulated by Donald Trump. Let's take a look at what he did. When he came back the second time, he took over assignments into the press pool and the assignments into not only the press pool, but in the briefing room.
Right.
So, and at the same time, so that was the micro way of managing it, micromanaging. He macro-managed it by making sure that Paramount and CBS kissed his ass, and now he's going after CNN. There are 4 or 5 companies that own or operate everything, pretty much everything that you see, read, or hear. Donald Trump, they are all friends of Donald Trump's. They're all billionaires, so they're going to sway to what he wants.
Right.
If you're a critical viewer of what's going on in the White House and you watch the briefings, I would put it to you this way. Listen to the questions. When a reporter starts with a question that says, now, Donald Trump's been doing this, and as we all know, that's working out pretty good. Can you comment on why we're getting it wrong in the media? That's a planted question. That's either a reporter showing fealty, a manager got it given to him, and it was passed on down the line to the reporter, or it's directly from the White House. And those sitting in that new media seat are the ones that usually get the first question, and they're the ones that are told pretty much what to ask. The White House press corps is not what it was when I walked in there 40 years ago.
I used to love how you guys would banter that question around, where if someone failed at getting that question through, the next one picked up the same question and took it a ball further. And I really missed those days, to be honest with you, tremendously. For those who don't know that that's what it used to be like, it was good.
I miss that as well, and I was there for it and part of it. And part of the joy of being, and you talk to some press secretaries, they go, Brian, that's when we knew we were in trouble is, if you all started hitting, the guy in the middle asked me the question. I go to the guy on the left. He's asking me the same question. I go to the guy on the right. He goes, I feel like in my crosshairs. So then they would go to somebody they knew would ask a softball question. Well, everybody's asking softball questions today. So it's very tough to find more than 1 or 2 reporters who will ask the tough questions.
And one of the things I think also sticks with me is that I've never thought of the Wall Street Journal as a liberal newspaper.
I don't think anyone alive has.
And that's who's coming out with all the bad information lately.
Well, Donald Trump doesn't like any information that he doesn't approve of. So even if it's someone that he approves of a publication, you could have information he doesn't approve of, and he's going to go after you for that. The fact of the matter is that Donald Trump is right now making sure that, look, let's go. Here's the Donald Trump administration in a nutshell. Yep. Last week, little Pete Hegseth, a more unserious person I've never seen as Secretary of Defense. I've never seen anyone preen or
that's Secretary of War, sir. That's Secretary of War.
Secretary of Defense. I will continue calling it the Defense Secretary because that's the name by Congress. Screw Donald Trump and whatever he wants to call it.
Amen.
So the Secretary of Defense, he's the most unserious man I've ever seen in that job. I've never seen anyone preen or primp in front of a makeup mirror in the Pentagon as much as Hegseth. So he comes out to tell us that CNN and the New York Times are unserious because they're reporting stuff that they don't approve of. But here's the thing. They come out and tell us they won't tell us what's going on. So we go out and find it ourselves, and they don't like what we have to say because it doesn't match their baloney. At the end of the day, this is probably the most dangerous part of this administration is making sure that demonizing us for reporting stuff that they don't approve of while not giving us any information. I want to know why we're still at war. Just 15, 20 minutes ago, Donald Trump came out and said we've completely obliterated the Iranian military. Then why are we still at war? Never mind why are we at war in the first place. Never mind that on last night when you gaggled on Air Force One, Mr. President, you told us you could make a great argument for not going to war. Great. You've already killed a bunch of Americans. You've already killed 175 innocent school children in Iran and thousands of others and millions of dollars worth of damage. And you could say we shouldn't be, you could see why we aren't at war. Okay, then why are we still at war? They won't tell us that. So we have to find out, and they don't like the answers that we get because they don't jive with the fiction that has been created by Donald Trump. Donald Trump is in this war because he wants to be. He wants to be. There are multiple reasons why he wants to be. He doesn't want to talk about Epstein. He'd rather burn the whole world down than talk about the fact that he's in the Epstein files. He doesn't want to talk about what's going on in Minneapolis and the fact that we've killed innocent Americans. Right. He would rather unite us all in killing somebody else. If you're going to talk about 47 years of, if you say the imminent threat to the United States, and this is the closest we've got to an imminent threat, a reason to invoke the War Powers Act in order to, escalate violence, Donald Trump said it's 47 years of violence against the United States. Well, that's not an imminent threat. That's a threat that's been going on for 47 years. What was the imminent threat? You don't have it. And by the way, if you want to go back 47 years and the Iranian Revolution and blame the Iranians for this war, why not just go back to 1953? Go back 26 years earlier, when Britain, the United States, and some oil companies acting like J.R. Ewing decided to overthrow the democratically elected government in Iran to place the Shah, because the democratic elected government in Iran wanted to nationalize the oil companies to make money for the average poor, and we couldn't have that. So what happened was, 26 years later, with the people starving because the Shah was our puppet and a corrupt, puppet at that, the far right sprang up. The far right, the very far right religious sects in Iran sprung up, and that was the Iranian Revolution. Everything going on in Iran today is a result of that move in 1953. We are culpable, we are responsible, and we take no responsibility for our own actions. I'm not going to defend the mullahs and the extreme religious nuts in Iran. Right. Who would? Except them. But there's a better way to do it, and we still haven't done it. By the way, he said 4 months ago he completely obliterated their ability to make a nuclear weapon. 2 weeks ago, he started a war saying they were 2 weeks away from creating a nuclear weapon.
They're fast.
They haven't been able to create a nuclear weapon in 60 years. Now they can do it in 2 weeks. Somebody's bullshitting me. Now, listen, I grew up in a family where my father was a car salesman. My uncles were lawyers. I'm a reporter. I know bullshit when I smell it. You're going to have to do a lot better than that, Mr. President. You're a liar and a bullshit artist. Sorry, Ray.
No, my dad sold cars, was an honest guy. My mom worked as a paralegal at a law firm, so we sound very familiar to me. It's a lot to grow up with. Go, what does your mom do? Law firm. What does your dad do? Sold cars. Oh, what does that make you? A journalist?
Yeah. I have a story about that. I have a very funny story about that. I was covering the Francis Jones Mills trial in Kentucky in 1986. She was on trial, the state treasurer, for some bit of corruption. And the AP reporter came over to me and said, "Brian, are you related to Fred Karem?" I go, "Yeah, that's my grandfather." I said, she goes, "Are you related to David and Pete?" And I said, "Yeah, those are my uncles." She goes, "Well, one's back when they had allowed Democrats in Kentucky, he was the Senate Majority Leader, and the other one was the Chief Justice of the Circuit Court. My grandfather was a former Circuit Court judge." She goes, "What does your dad do for a living?" And I said, "Sell cars." She goes, "So you're a reporter. Your uncles and your grandfather were lawyers, judges, and state reps." I go, "Yeah." "And your dad sells cars for a living?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "Couldn't anybody in your family find an honest way to make a living?"
Well, I thought about this with Trump on the first day of his new term, when I was at a briefing here in Kiev, and had one of the officials, who's an older Ministry of Defense guy, said, "Well, we're at least hoping that, since he's a businessman." I said, "Vin the businessman. Vin Nikola не сказал правду." He's not a businessman. He never tells the truth. My dad was a businessman. My dad understood that if you fuck someone over, that word gets around. If you take care of people, that word gets around. And I've been a business owner for 27 years, and I know that basically you got to take care of the clients. You got to make sure that they go out and speak on your good behalf down the road, backstage, wherever they're at, so that your business grows. And you can't. And I say he's a pitch man, only a pitch man, and there's nothing in the bag to sell when it's done.
He's a grifter. What Donald Trump
grifter.
What Donald Trump did, and why he is successful, and what the Democrats haven't figured out. Donald Trump, I remember the rally, he had wasn't saying anything about immigration, but he heard it at a rally. I think it was in Arizona that I was there witnessing. And so after that, he made it a cheap. He listened. He spit back to people what they had told him, and he sounded like he cared about people. That's a grifter. That's what he did. He didn't give a crap. The Democrats, on the other hand, want to tell me why what they're doing is best for me without ever listening to me. And that's the difference. Imagine how bad the Republican Party is that they can only elect Donald Trump. That's the best they got. Now, imagine how bad the Democrats are. They can't beat Donald Trump. You have two parties. I say one has no heart and one has no head. But the Republicans are very good at getting elected, right? You can get an idiot like Donald Trump elected. They're horrible at governing. How many times has the government been shut down on Donald Trump? Well, that's a record. They can't make the government run. The Democrats have a hard time finding someone to get elected, but they govern very well. For example, what's the greatest example of bipartisanship in the last decade? The infrastructure bill. That came during Biden's term, and he did it by working both sides of the aisle. The Democrats know how to govern. The Republicans know how to get elected, and both of them suck because of it.
Well, and not to distract us too much from what Trump's been doing, because that's not what I want to do tonight.
Yeah.
But I just heard that the Virginia Democrats just tried to Spanberger, I guess is her name, just tried to pass a assault weapons ban or something out of nowhere that's going to just bring the right wing to the fucking polls. So some gun-toting lefties, or at least counterforce, I don't know if I want to call them lefties, but counterforce to MAGA are up in arms like, why the fuck did you just do this? You could have just shut the fuck up and just run your candidates till election day and it would have been fine. Now you've given them a reason to, oh, well, look at this video. They're stocking up. Well, look at this video. They're over at the gun store. But now they're going to show up at the polls.
Yes.
And Democrats are notorious for snatching victory out of the jaws of victory.
Defeat from the jaws of victory every time. Or if you prefer it in a Walter Cronkite voice.
Please, I need that.
I'll tell you that the Democrats are absolutely excellent at eating each other until they're dead. They're cannibals.
And Cory Booker just said, he said it, when he talked to the failure of what's going on, he says, we got some problems in our own party as well of confronting this. And so let's bring it to Congress. Have you talked to any members of Congress who are going to do more than stand at the microphone and yell and bitch a fit? Or is anyone half serious about trying to put some skids on this?
Well, the Democrats have to field candidates who can win in respective districts. Mamdani can win in New York. He couldn't win in West Virginia, right? And of course, northeastern Kentucky, which is where you go when you flunk out of West Virginia. And I only say that because I grew up in Kentucky. But the Democrats really should take kind of one Tip O'Neill. They should take a tip from Tip O'Neill, who, when he went out and campaigned, went to the individual districts trying to win back the House, and didn't go for the best Democrat. He went for the most popular guy in the district. Said, "Hey, if you can do these 3 or 4 things, we'll support you." And so that's how they won back the House. That's how he helped recruit new members into the House and got some good House members. I think the Democrats need to do that. I think they need to find who can win. And for the love of God, show up and vote. I can't tell you the number of people I've interviewed who will go out and they will build a poster. They'll get dressed up. They'll drive a half hour, 45 minutes. They'll protest for 8 hours. And then when I interview them, they tell me they won't vote because voting doesn't matter. Christ, if you're going to spend 8 hours protesting, spend an hour or 2 voting. Just get it done. And I don't care. Donald Trump's.
Did they ever say what if they're not going to vote? What is the plan they think is going to change things? Do they ever say that?
None. Protesting. That's it. Well, I'm showing my will by protesting. You're doing nothing. I mean, I love a good protest. Don't get me wrong. I've had some really good food at a protest. But you've got to vote, and more than vote, you've got to drive older people to the polls. Get involved with phone banks. Volunteer to work the precincts, counting votes. I guarantee you the far right is. So everybody who isn't in the far right should. And I don't care how difficult Donald Trump tries to make it and suppress the vote this fall. you've got to vote. That means you got to go out and get a passport to do it. Do it. I know it costs money, but nothing is more important. This election, this could be the last election of my lifetime, or the last one that matters. And Donald Trump's going to do everything to make sure that the minority wins. Remember this. There is an undercurrent of 25 to 30% of the people in the United States who support Donald Trump and will always support Donald Trump.
Right.
That means if you only have a 60% turnout, that 30% plus one wins. We need a voter turnout of 75 to 80%. That's a good voter turnout. And we need people to work hard for the democracy, for the republic. If not, well, you get what you deserve then. Don't come out and bitch afterwards if you didn't vote and you didn't get involved. I'll be bitching the whole time. I've never missed a chance to vote my entire life.
I also say, for those who aren't paying attention to, I'm sure you guys are because you're savvy people, but I like that you have a daily daily ticker on where we're at until that happens. So I think that's important.
I try to. 1,041 days left to go in our countdown to liberty. Donald Trump's still at war, and now he's saying there's maybe a reason why we shouldn't be. Details at 11.
So I noticed when I was putting this piece together for today, I was trying to look at some commentary from Congress, and thanks to the Guardian, I'll tell you everyone where it gets it. They quoted that Ron Johnson was on Fox News yesterday saying, I think it's too far. And Ron Johnson's not exactly known for the savviest guy on the block, but he's kind of dumb. But he said too far for me. I kind of like a free press.
We haven't had a free press for a while, brother. But the corporate media has been decimated and destroyed, and I don't know if it comes back. The backbone of good journalism is local journalism. Many national stories first start as local stories. Right. We have vast news deserts in the United States. If we're going to save journalism, as I say in the book, you got to bust up the media monopolies. You've got to give.
It's this book, everybody. Go get it.
You got.
I brought it to war with me 4 years ago because it's like a Bible for my work.
God bless you. We've got to bust up the media monopolies. We've got to give low interest loans to small media companies, tax breaks to them, and we can't allow government to publish their own public notice ads. They have to be in the newspapers. Those are supportive of newspapers, supportive of democracy. I can hold up a copy of the newspaper. I've probably got one around here from 1855, and it has not been changed. It is as it was on the day it was printed. In a court of law, that's finite. That holds sway. Anything on the internet can be hacked and changed in a heartbeat. So we need newspapers. We do. And people still love that. I know people who love to cut out pictures of their kids playing in youth sports in the community newspapers and hang them on the wall. That we need. We need more of that, but you've got to have support for it. Yes, newspapers have died and government has killed them. And by killing them, I will tell you that most television stations use newspapers as sources. Well, if they're not there, the only source we have is the crap that's going on in the White House briefing room. And that, my friends, is not news. That's propaganda.
And yesterday, last night I was on the air last night with Tim White, who's a journalist, a British journalist who's come here to Ukraine for a while. And I said, I know I did 3 articles. Well, I guess I did 2. No, because I forgot to tell one, and I'm going to bring it up right now. I got a message after someone had unsubscribed from Wiretap, and the message read that, let me see if I can find it. Good intentions are not enough. I will donate to a charity that helps Ukraine instead. Sorry. Now, I'm not going to name who wrote this because I did figure out who this person was, and they should know better. And I went, I'm sorry. Did you think that the work I do for 4 years is good intentions? No. I sit in press, basically the equivalent of C-SPAN here, of these press offices, listening to a range of NGOs, citizens, people affected by the war, and sometimes government officials. And my question for people who don't understand independent journalism is, if you say, well, if you want a better job, go to United 24, state press, Ukrinform, state press. All these things mean that I now work with an entity that will sort of dictate what I cover, how I cover it, and more importantly, is for our viewers, they would have no way of knowing whether or not what I see on the ground is legit or not, because at that point I'm taking a paycheck from an organization instead of the viewers and the listeners. That, and even more importantly, I would say all the work I do here is generated on the ground by people in front of me who say, my son's in captivity. No one's talked to me. My brother is missing, and no one's talked to me. I go to the officials and I say, let's see what we can do to talk about your situation. And we do this very organically. And I learned this at Pacifica Radio as a community radio guy, where we had things that were never covered by the major news networks. They certainly were never covered by AM radio, and they would be lost if not for people who from the community came forward and said, we want to organically work to get those stories there. And you mentioned local press as a big part of that. And that's exactly what I do and why I do it.
Well, it's important that we have it. It's important that we support it. It's important that we have people on your staff. We got to get you staffers. And look, I've worked for, it used to be like when I worked, for corporate media, nobody interfered with what we did, right?
Mm-hmm.
We stood apart from the corporate entity and asked questions of everyone. That's not the case anymore. In fact, CBS is being run by it's hegemony, and it's being run by, I can't even pronounce her. I don't want to say her name, but
sure.
Donald Trump did that because Paramount, who is in the middle of negotiating a buyout, had deals with the government. You cannot, if in the future, you've got to limit companies from having contracts with the government because it's a conflict of interest. What you're talking about cannot happen anymore being an independent reporter if you have a conflict of interest with the government that you're reporting on. And that's the greatest anathema and the greatest challenge to free speech. Everything isn't about money. It sounds naive to say it, but it's so true. In fact, so little is about money. When you make it about money, you belittle your life.
Amen.
Here's the fact. I am engaged in what I consider public service. I go to places that people will not go to normally or cannot go to. I see things and witness them to tell other people.
Correct.
My inspiration was Robert Worth Bingham's statement over the elevators at the Courier Journal and Louisville Times when I was a kid, and I looked up and saw that, and it said, I have always considered my newspapers a public service, and I have always a public trust, and I have always endeavored to operate them to give the greatest public service. That to me is why I got in the business. To this day, I will say that. And so there are people who get in this business, have no clue, rhyme or reason why, other than to kiss someone's ass and tell people, to be the center of attention. I've had bouts of fame in my life. I don't give a shit. That's not what I'm here for. And it's actually kind of hard for me to toot my own horn sometimes. It's distasteful. But I'll say this, fuck everybody. I've angered every fucking politician I've ever covered. I've angered every press secretary I've ever covered. And when I write a story that pisses off the left and the right, I know I've hit my sweet spot. I got them all pissed off. So that's why I'm here.
Well, and let me bring you to this platform, and we have great viewers here. Have you felt kind of a need amongst people that come here and watch, the programs that you co-share, either when you're live on your own or you jump in with our good brother Mark Zaid and others to talk about the issues? If you see them show up, we got 135 people right now who definitely want to hear some information. Isn't that at least a little bit of a beacon of hope, maybe?
Well, I always have hope. Dude, I've got kids, three sons and 3 grandchildren. I better have hope. Else, what am I doing here? I do have hope. But for things to change as quickly as they've changed, to change back or to get better, we have got to break up media monopolies. We have got to invest in journalism. When I was growing up, journalism is what we called an out-of-work reporter. So I've been a journalist once or twice, but I've been a working reporter most of my life. Support the working press. Do it.
Well, I passed up a copy editor job that would put a steady income in after really. I got permission from everywhere, And I would say, and I don't know if I said this with our last conversation with you, but the final best permission was a reward from families I covered who said, this is a well-earned, reward for your hard work for us. That's what gave me permission to turn it down.
Well, that's cool.
Was that I said, you know what, if they believe in me, that's who I'm going to work for, not for. And no offense to the outlet that I was interviewing with, I have a lot of respect for them, but I knew that I had to keep it as organic as possible, and the only way I could do that, it was to not take the safety job. In other words, like I had to keep sticking to what would bring in the information, but also the connectedness. And I don't work alone. We have 7 people on the team right now. Some of them are not in country right now. Actually, I have 3 guys here in Ukraine at the
That's
present moment,
journalism.
and
That's
we
journalism.
we work together. And I am not a overlord of those, even though I'm the chief of it. But I'm only the chief of it because I had the faith, 4 years ago, say, go back to what you did at Pacifica. And we built the news network from the ground up after the news network had been, or the news portion of the network had been gutted entirely. And we had no news department. And we built it with 4 people and a handful of volunteers with no budget.
Well, look, journalism is a collaborative effort.
Right.
And you need editors, you need photographers, you need reporters, you need producers, you need a variety of people. And one of the great things about journalism, what people don't realize who aren't in the business, is all of those people have a voice in the final product.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a picture you've taken, whether as an editor, it's looking over his shoulder and going, hey, where did you get that name? You spelled it wrong. Hey, is that quote? Where'd you get that fact? So you have people who are dedicated to putting out vetted factual information. My feeling about journalism is that it is the art of applying the scientific method to mass communication.
Correct. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
will correct yourself. You will, until you find, vetted facts that cannot be defeated by other facts. Correct. And your editors are your peer review process before you publish. So those who adhere to that have my greatest respect and my support. There are plenty of people who will come out and go, I'm telling you the truth. And I go, what truth? There are 4,000, different religions on this planet, each with their own truth. Right. I actually don't even like the term speaking truth to power. I think it's speaking facts to power. I want to give you vetted facts, and then you decide what your truth is. But we all have to agree on the vetted facts. That's how you create a fabric of reality. Donald Trump, if you don't agree with him, Donald Trump, wants to kick you out of the inner circle, kick you out of the nest, deride you, decry you, and confiscate you, and obfuscate you, and prosecute you. So I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who wants to go. You say that that you've obliterated Iranians' potential to make war. Show me the money, you little son of a bitch. That's and
I was screaming at him from a different position. I was a researcher.
I will go with show me the money. The editorial comment will be a little son of a bitch.
I was in a different role a few years ago when he was talking about eliminating ISIS. I was chief of research for a terrorism firm, and I put the journalism. I mean, I was a book researcher, so in that capacity, I was doing the journalism. But because I knew that shit about ISIS so well, I'm like, really, you've eliminated ISIS? Well, that's not my report this morning because it's active here, 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 and I combine those skills actually now where I can look at the composite of data about how Iran will fight back, about its proxy abilities. And I compared really the fight we went into in 2002 with Iraq to that which we're going against with Iran. And I said, if you thought we had a problem for years in Iraq, yeah, we're fucked right now. Because that's
a highly technical term, Chris.
Yeah,
we're fucked.
We're fucked.
Well, we're
screwed out the abacus and pull it back out the abacus.
This is a forever war. This is, if we're lucky, this is Vietnam. But mind you,
good point.
You have Bibi Netanyahu who's involved in this. And that man will not go gentle into that good night. And my fear is he will use a tactical nuke or escalate matters if it gets dangerous for Israel.
Right.
And we are right now in a proxy war with Russia. They are supporting Iran. We are supporting
That's right.
This is World War III. I can't say it any plainer with what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in Iran, what's going on in Africa, what's going on in Venezuela. This is a world at war. And now I don't care what you can call it the World Fabergé concert. Who gives a shit? The world is at war. This is a world war. How do we back out of this? How do we solve this problem that we've created, helped to create? How do we solve this problem? So the next thing you know, we all don't have to have, a Series 5000 sunscreen because of uranium poisoning. That's my concern. And anybody who thinks that's alarmist, get real. This is as real as we are, as close to nuclear conflagration as we've been in my lifetime. And I remember my next door neighbor digging, a hole in the ground and threatening to kill anybody that got into his bomb shelter.
Let's bring it back to, because I'm 56 and you're just a hair older than I am, not much, but just a little bit.
When I was celebrated my 65th, but I am still 19. Rock and roll.
I hear you. When I was a young person, there was a movie that made a big impact on how I saw the news, and it was The Late Great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey.
Great.
And his effect on the religious right, but also his effect, because of his effect on the religious right, how it permeated into other parts of the narrative we had for all those years. Now, eventually, most of that died off from the mainstream and it moved to other things, especially after the fall of the USSR. But it was everywhere. Apocalyptic this, apocalyptic that, right? And now we're back at that with almost the same machinations of these crazy religious guys in, Pete Hegseth's preacher going to the Pentagon, for instance. And I think that's an area I'm really concerned with.
Well, if you want to see where your concern should be, go to The Day After. Go watch that movie.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, ABC.
And afterwards, ABC had a news conference to explain this what you had just seen on television in a television movie. And Carl Sagan said two things he coined the phrase nuclear winter, which he described in detail what would happen if we launched nuclear weapons. And at the same time, he described the United States and at that time the Soviet Union as if they were two opponents sitting in a room filled with gasoline, one arguing over who has more matches. Now, folks, that's what you're facing again, and we have forgotten. We used to have a mutually assured destruction policy. We don't have it. We let our treaties with Russia expire over nuclear arms. Folks, this can and will get out of hand. It's got to be reined in. The habitability of the planet, our own existence as a species demands it. Right. We have to be better at what we do.
One of our readers has said, I was going to school in the 50s and we had drills to get under our little desk in case
I had those too.
I was at the last of the generations of duck and cover, under our desk, duck and cover, as if that was going to do much. But,
we were told that we ducked and cover. Where I lived, we had duck and cover drills for nuclear bombs and for tornadoes. So it was the same. And then we either ducked and covered under our desks or went out into the hall and sat quietly against the wall. Now, you tell me, how effective is that going to be when the radiation can fry you in a heartbeat? So when Donald Trump says he's going to end this war when he feels it in his bones, I'm beginning to wonder if that means when he feels the radiation sickness in his bones. Because I got to tell you, folks, nothing that he's done is precipitating the end of the war, only the continuation of it. even coming out to the point and saying we have enough weapons. This is a guy who wants to be the peace president. This is a guy who says that, he has stopped more wars. This is a guy who says he's not in for a forever war. Just said last week that we have enough weapons to wage war with Iran forever.
Even though he just said we don't have enough because of Biden.
Yes.
But we have the best of everything anyway. Yeah, it's crazy. Let me bring it home here. First off, two points, because we mentioned the nuclear fallout. I live in Kyiv. I've been here for 4 years, and just north of us is Chernobyl. And there's still, everyone who tries to go do that tour up there knows that all the protocol they have to go to get near to the sarcophagus itself. So it is a long-term problem. Once it becomes a problem, it's a long-term problem. So just as remember that. But sticking to the Ukraine angle for a moment, there's this guy, you might have heard of Volodymyr Zelensky, and he has 4 years of active war experience as a president. And he went to Trump and crew and said, I'd be glad to help. We have the ability to help you. And Trump, 24 hours plus ago, said, that's the last guy I need.
That's the last guy I need. I'm brilliant. Nobody needs. And then I'll turn around and I'll accept his help. So that's bullshit. Whatever Donald Trump says is a lie. Everything he says is a lie. If Donald Trump tells you that the sun rises in the east, you best open up a window and check, because he's probably wrong. Donald Trump is an anathema to humanity. Donald Trump needs to be arrested and thrown in prison, and that'll never happen. But my hope is that at the end of the day, after Donald Trump is a postscript in history, that Susie Wiles, I'm sorry you have cancer. I hope you get better. But I hope that you face the music. I hope that Stephen Miller wears orange. And, of course, Pam Bondage ends up in prison for the rest of her life. If those people face the music for what this man has done, much as Nixon's parade of criminals who surrounded him did, then maybe we have a chance of going forward. And for the love of God, will someone in Congress grow a spine? Do what the hell you're supposed to do. Be the third rung in the government. Right now, the only one holding up their end of the bargain is the frickin' judiciary. And that's nice.
Yeah.
But Congress has abdicated its throne to Donald Trump, who wants to be a king and to have us all subservient. At the end of the day, if you're not going to take back your power will be taken from you. Everyone in Congress, Democrat and Republican, should stand up for the power that they have in the Constitution and stand up to Donald Trump. I don't care if you're going to get. And by the way, all of this information that has come out, you could say it as a congressman standing up in Congress. If you are sure, you may lose your seat, but do it, because the republic is at stake and there are things more important. It's called public service for a reason. You're there to serve the public, not your paycheck, not Donald Trump, and certainly not one individual, whoever that is, rich, poor, or otherwise. You're there to serve the public interest. And that's what we try to do in the press. That's why we're called the fourth estate, because our job
precisely
is to provide public service. If you're not going to do your job, get the hell out of the way. Go make your money and get out of my face, because I'm tired of looking at you. And you're not going to intimidate me. You're not going to drive me away. I'm here to do my job. And if you don't like it, go screw yourself.
Well, and I put in a couple of things in the last articles that I put in. Actually, I wrote one a few weeks ago similarly, that the founders understood this need for the press. And we actually had founders who went and lobbied and argued as lawyers for those who had been oppressed for speaking through the press. So we know that that's true. But that's why they put it in the First Amendment instead of the 15th or the 20th. But I want to ask you, do you talk to anyone who's in the military currently who is, obviously it's difficult with, Captain Pete around, but who are saying, hey, we have to uphold our honor and our integrity as military members, and we have an obligation to our oath.
There are those that I know inside the DOD and the Pentagon who have given Donald Trump advice not to go to war. They're pretty much washed their hands with it. They're upset with him. Look, the reason why we're at war is because Donald Trump wanted to be. He saw something in it. And I'm sure that someone on his staff said, look, instead of splitting the country apart with this, let's go after somebody we've hated for damn near half a century. Go after them without ever thinking of the consequences. Just
because they suddenly love Muslim children, right?
Yes. And,
they voted against, one of the things that, since we last talked, they voted against condemning, or at least holding, I forget how the wording was in the UN, of condemning the Taliban for treating women like dogs, and the votes against that were Israel and the United States.
Gee, I wonder why.
I would bring it back to the citizen level, because I always say, if you don't like Louis Gohmert, you should ask people in this district why you elected Louis Gohmert. I think that, just like we say Donald Trump is a symptom of something else that's in the population, I think that the members of Congress are equally a symptom of the problem in the population. How can more citizens get active and speak to their representative level to say, look, if I'm the reason why you're not acting, tell me what I can do to make sure that you have what you need to get your fucking spine back in order and get out there and do your fucking job.
First of all, everybody in Congress is subjected to we do have term limits. They're called elections. Every 2 years, every 6 years, every 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Exercise your option to say no. Also, give to those who you support. And then those in office, make sure that they know how you feel. There are phone banks, some of the biggest parts of the budget in a congressional office are the staffers who take phone calls.
Right.
So make sure and bug the living shit out of them, like you would a kid who doesn't take his shoes off when he comes into the house, or a child who doesn't know how to wipe his own ass, because that's what Congress is made of. Children who have appealed to those with money, know how to scream and rant and get what they want. And maybe one of these days we'll get adults back in office. But between now and November, make sure you're on the voter rolls. Check and make sure. Check your registration. Make sure you are there. Secondly, volunteer to get involved in phone banks. Thirdly, make sure that you're involved in getting the elderly and the young to the polls to vote. Make sure that you volunteer to work in the polls. Make sure that you volunteer to work on election day. Make sure that you vote. Make sure, because I guarantee you that 25 to 30% of the extreme.
They're already planning that, exactly.
They're doing it. So if you don't, it's on you. We get the government in this country that we deserve, and we deserve shit if we don't do shit. And that's exactly what we're getting.
Steve Bannon explicitly laid out the ground game he wants for the election, to harass the voters at the polls, to create a sphere of intimidation. And the only way you can meet and match that is to show up with the countervailing force.
And my feeling is, fuck you. You're not intimidating me. Who the hell do you think you are? That you think you can intimidate me? My God, I've stood up to president. More importantly, I've been married for 43 years. I'm telling you, tough. Hey, look, being intimidated is a mindset,
right?
And they're counting on you to be afraid. Afraid of what?
Right.
Afraid of what? A life that you live the way you don't want to live in subservience is no life at all. So that's I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees type of thing. That is Zapata in Mexico said is pretty true. I don't give a shit. And try to intimidate. They're bullies. Most of them are big chicken shits that you stand up to them
exactly.
And back down. Now the ones you have to worry about are not the ones that threaten you. That's the ones that don't. The ones that hide. In anonymity. Those are the ones that, busted my window out, the ones that continue to threaten my life. I can't do anything about that, but I'll be goddamned if I'm going to sit there and bend over and take it in the ass because somebody is calling me something or somebody is threatening me. I just can't do it.
Well, I'll say, having lived here with Ukrainians who are fighting back against an overwhelmingly larger country, and against sort of an apathy in the world. There is no luxury for surrender. There is no luxury
No,
for taking a rest and a break and letting it just hopefully work out in thoughts and prayers. It's
but
not a thing.
that's why the people in Ukraine are my heroes. When I was there,
Amen.
you saw it. You saw it on the billboards.
Yeah.
You saw it in the beer that they drink. You see it when the old lady says, "This is our land. We'll live above it. You can live below it." These
Right.
people aren't taking no shit, and they don't give a shit if Vladimir Putin is threatening them. They're going to live the life they want to live. My heroes. I never felt more. I sat there covering the first days of the well, not the first days of the war. The war actually started in 2014, but
Right.
the invasion and I
Fusco.
sat
Yeah.
and I sat there at a hotel having my morning coffee, and I looked around and I said, "This country, I don't know if he can level it, but even if Putin could level it, he could never rule over it because these
Right.
people do not give a shit for him." And if we had a little more of that activism, I mean, I love the farmers that I saw out in the middle of the country who were saying, "You fuck Putin."
Yeah.
I had one guy who said, "Are you from? You're from America?" I said, "Yes," and he said, "I hear you have many guns in the United States." I said, "Yes, we do." He says, "Bring them here. We'll kill many Russian bear." So, I
Right.
mean, I love that attitude.
And I've learned a lot from Ukrainians about a range of ways that they viewed the fight for the last several centuries, the last century itself, and the last 12 years especially. And one of the things that bothers me is and this is why I came to Substack and turned on the camera after 4 years of staying off camera and just focusing my camera forward, was that I felt I needed to start talking more to you Americans from this side of the fight, because the way that they got Yanukovych out wasn't that they walked down and occasionally held a No Kings rally. They went out every day after November 2013, and no matter how much force he threw back at them, they showed up even more. And the more force he threw at them, the more people showed up. And the more he did, the more they responded, until he got on a plane on February 22nd, 2012, I mean 2014, and basically someone will text me right now, Chris, it was a chopper. Okay, fine, a chopper. I know my friends. Before I even say it, my friend will text me that tomorrow if I don't say that. And got the fuck out of Dodge and ran off to Russia. And the reason why that's important is only a year ago when Zelensky passed, policy change about the two corruption agencies, NABU and SAPU. 7 days of protest reversed the fucking thing. 7 days reversed it.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
tells you what the government thinks of the people, is they know, don't fuck with them because they will take you out of office one way or the
Well,
other.
the one moment that sticks with me was during an air raid, and I think we
Mm-hmm.
were in Kiev or we were in Lviv. I can't remember where we were, but there was a air raid, and we're in an open air market, and there's a guy
Mm-hmm.
selling espressos. Everybody is carefully, quietly shuffling into the air raid shelters. The guy
Mm-hmm.
keeps his espresso thing open, so I walked over to him. I said, "You're not closing?" He goes, "He hits me, I got no worries. If he doesn't, I got coffee to sell." I said, "I love this guy." I bought the coffee and stood with him. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I
and
have film of buskers who still play when the air raid goes off. They're like, oh, okay.
yeah, yeah.
And they just keep playing and, suka. But I think it's important. Again, I think that the apathy is what I'm concerned with America. And, we have, thankfully, people here who know not to be apathetic. But, what do you see? I want to get back to one more big thing that you mentioned last time we talked, and we need to exercise it here. How can average citizens start doing more in their communities to, let's say they don't know how to get their local press empowered? What do you think they can do to build the funds for those voices so that they take more action instead of hoping someone else will do it
Let your
for local journalism?
let your local city council and your state legislators know that you
Mhm.
support journalism. You must subscribe to whatever local journalists are out there, but you must let the city and the state government know that they have to subsidize journalism with public notice ads and the other right to notice ads that have been a part of journalism for the last 150 years. It helps pay the salaries. It helps put people in the seats. And by God, no government should be publishing on their own website news about public notices. Hey, we've got something coming up on Friday. Well, what if you lied about it and you never posted that? A disinterested third-party observer, i.e. the press, are those who are responsible for holding you responsible. You have to pay for it. That's part of what we do as voters, is vote you in for public service. And part of that public service, by God, is making sure that people who aren't part of the government are telling us what's going on in the government. We live in a time when city councils, PTAs, state legislators are not covered as they should be. When I covered the Kentucky General Assembly in 1984, there were more than 100 people that covered it from all over the state. Today, maybe 3. That's a problem.
Well, here's my first one from 26 years ago.
You don't even want to see mine. It's from 40
and there's the
years
current
ago.
one, and I just got my renewal for another year accreditation. It is sacred, and I keep with me in my pocket all the time. And you're a big reason why it means even more to me. Is I know that you and others have been fighting this battle for your accreditation, and I'm with you, bro. This is
well, God bless you, and we're with you there. Hang tight there. You might be in a safer place right now than I am.
Yeah, actually, I say this all the time. I call it to America all the time. Hey, I'm calling occupied territory. How you doing over there? Do we need secret codes? Yeah. Well, Chris, you're in war. I go, yeah, but, or they'll say, hey, Chris, stay safe. Am I in a church in America, a grocery store, a school? I just run down the list of things I've covered as a counterterrorism guy that were all unsafe. And I even told a woman who wanted to have me take her to America. She wanted a date. And like, you take me to America, go, hold on. And I pulled out my screenshots of me on TV. I go, did you ever have a kid go into Silpo, which is one of our grocery stores, and shoot everyone? No, your reaction says everything. The fact that you were stunned at me even introducing that as a concept tells me everything. Yes, I know we have Russian missiles coming in, but here's a church shooting. Here's and it was just a whole series of things that happen in America that I don't see here. But more importantly is that Zelensky is not sending out, squads to like I know people see these little clips on TV of what we call Tetsika, or the recruitment guys, and it gets muddled up by Russian disinformation. But I actually know usually what happens at those events. Why? Because I'm an independent press guy, and I can go up and find out what is the situation with that. Okay, the guy didn't have his papers done right. He threw an attitude problem. He got out of line. But did you see the 20 other guys that walked right by, had the same conversation, and no one got pissed off at each other, and no one filmed it? And that's the spotlight fallacy is the proper term for anyone who doesn't know that in news. Spotlight fallacy is a big problem with disinformation when it comes to what you see on the internet, churned up beyond its measure. But the reason why I'm saying that this is so important is that, especially that it's independent. I'm the chief of this with a handful of folks that do all this work. Is someone mentioned earlier they didn't know that United 24 was state news essentially, and I think they do a good job at telling you a lot of things. But it has got budget. It has got massive budget, and people who get to do those stories have an entire team to come do it, whereas everyone else has to struggle to come up with funds, to go to the front, to travel, to fly into the country, out of the country, and that starts limiting your ability to understand whether or not you're finding out the truth, or, as you said, the facts.
And there's my congressional press pass, and somewhere I still have my. This is the VIP pass backstage to something, but the one that's still, I had it in here. Yeah, it's somewhere. The one that the place press pass I still have. Most valuable one I've ever had.
Right. So this is the slew of them that I keep around.
Oh well, my slew is. Hold on,
Yours is better, bro. I'm not.
All right.
Y'all are just watching Geek Squads here now. We're just enjoying the fun part. What's valuable? There you go, bro. Exactly.
That's from 40 years of this shit.
Amen.
Including
it means something, right?
That's covering the mass shooting, the DC mass shooting event.
Fuck, man.
Speakers. Some of these are from. Well, there's the CNN one, and then there's. Right. A bunch of them from different, these are from Republican and Democratic national conventions. I keep them all as
Yeah, I've got a couple of those. When
yeah,
Lindsey Goodman got gassed, I missed that by just a few yards.
One of these is from '96. One of these is and here's one from. I think this is from Ukraine.
Hey, you got a military accreditation pass right there. I know that.
Yeah,
I know that look.
Yeah. So I keep them just as for shits and giggles to remind me of some of the stories.
I keep this one for good luck. This is my Dalai Lama in Central Park that I've been holding on for many years.
The only one I keep that I cherish the most, and I do have it framed, is the one that Trump tried to take away from me.
Exactly.
That one I will never let go of.
Right. Well, brother, I love you, man, and a lot of our friends know they really respect you. I look up to you a lot, and I thank you for all the work you've done before today, what you're doing right now, and always glad to have you back on, because this is really the only way we're going to get this job done. Is people have to understand the value of the press. They can't be passive about it. I lose my shit when it comes to the passive stuff that's all over CNN and various newspapers that are about like, oh, the Oscars happened and this is what this actor said. I don't give a fuck about the Oscars. I'm sorry, everybody.
I didn't even watch
them. I don't really care about that stuff. It triggers me just seeing it took up oxygen. But we're really thankful that you're out there doing it, and more importantly, our buddy Mark Zaid. I'll have him on, and I'll have him on again. They're trying to hammer. He's a fantastic guy, and he's a great lawyer. And if not for some of these pillars holding up, we wouldn't have a country right now.
No, we wouldn't, and we have to remain strong and fight. And you fight until you can't fight no more. That's how you
the great Taras Shevchenko said it in a passage we learned very well here. Borita poborite, vam bo pomohai. Fight and you shall win, and God will be with you. And I live by that.
Thomas Jefferson. Hey, I'll go with Thomas Jefferson. The price of liberty is equal vigilance.
There you go. Yes. Well, thank you, my man, and we will see you guys soon. And take care, as we say here. God bless America. Slava Ukraini, heroim slava i pizdet Rossiyskej Federacji. And don't forget, not only follow Brian, you probably are following Brian, but go pick up not a used copy, get a good copy, a good real copy, and take it out and put it on your.
That one is third printing, and we will be at the Cannes Film Festival in May for a private showing of the documentary on the first 100 days of the new Donald Trump administration, and I will be signing books there.
Yeah, well, we'll keep up with you before then, and we got. Like I said last time, we got a long season until midterm, so we'll talk again.
Oh, hell yeah. All right, brother. Be safe.
Right, see you. Cheers.
Bye.